While you're in sunny Florida, be sure to visit
Warlando! Enter into a world of epic adventure.
Welcome to Warlando. I'm your host, Adam, and tonight we have our very special guest all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Matt Cale.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be aboard. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, it's our genuine pleasure. Tonight we want to talk about being a game master and what type of steps you do to get prepared, to get in the mood. What do you bring with you? What do you prepare, physical things you prepare and bring with you? So just, explain all that for the next hour, Matt.
Yeah, okay, here we go. I do got to say it's very, very difficult. The listeners can't see us, but it's hard to take you seriously with Yoda ears on your headphones.
I'll post a picture when I put this out. Yeah, I put these are my old Splug goblin pointy ears.
Oh, Splug. Splug, I miss you.
Oh, Splug. Everybody who played the first adventure from the red box in Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, the character Splug was a goblin in that set. So I'm sure that was a really popular box set, and I'm sure lots of people met Splug in their journeys, and our version of Splug stayed with us all the way to level 20.
Yeah, he was. I think we cared more about Splug than we actually cared about our own characters. At the end, everybody's like, I'll step in the trap. That's fine. Don't let Splug do it. No.
I remember we were in Tomb of Horrors, and I was running the session, and you guys had lowered Splug down on a rope to check on something, and he got trapped, and everybody just lost it when Splug was trapped by himself.
Yep. that session felt more emotional than I think like when my character died. Definitely like
that was an emotional moment. Like a major character death.
Yeah, well done. So I guess I should say, like, we should probably set it up this way maybe.
Okay.
So when I was learning to DM, right, to crash this thing back on course, I mean, I learned initially from watching you, so.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, whatever good habits or bad habits I had are all your fault.
What?
But yeah, that's like, I guess I should roll it back just a little bit, but I had never really played D&D until I was an adult, so I don't have, the same experience I heard a lot of people say, which is how I grew up playing 1st edition and all this stuff. I didn't really get introduced to it until, well into my 30s. So I guess I have a little bit of a different spin on it, that I only know a little bit of 4th edition and 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And then, the other stuff with the more, I guess, indie game systems or the one-offs or the here and there stuff I've picked up along the way are all sort of in that modern context. So I don't know. The old school folks might be a little bit like, well, these young guys don't remember the old days.
Yeah, I don't think there is like people. I keep reading articles and seeing memes about people gatekeeping D&D, and I don't think it matters what age you come to it. The game's the game, and however you want to play it is the right answer.
Yeah, definitely. I think I missed some of the context a little bit, and so I think I have to. Maybe this gets into it some. Is I feel like I need to study pretty hard to like be up to like what does it mean when a white dragon drops in from somewhere like that's a whole wormhole of like context and D&D history and like, this, understanding like all that different kind of stuff. So, one of the things I would prep is if I know some specific monster is coming like that, then I mean, I'm definitely sort of reaching into all of my spare minutes. If I've got 5 minutes on lunch, let me just quick Google what's the history of ancient dragons, and sort of piecing it together like when I have time on the fly and stuff like that. So that's sort of one thing I've done is learn to mine my time a little bit, maybe just find those couple of 10 minutes during the day and like the question pops in your mind. Let me chase that for a minute. And, then I'll make a note to myself or something like that. So do you find yourself doing similar things when you're getting ready?
Yeah. The last game I game master was that we did a one-shot Marvel superhero session. That was like a year ago, and that one I'm so versed in the Marvel canon, I had to spend a lot of time. I just wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of the mechanics because it was a system I hadn't played before, and I had to explain it to everybody there who hadn't played it before. But it was a one-shot thing. I knew we could play it a little loose, but I still wanted it to be a challenge, and make the mechanics of the game matter. But I can definitely see those are the main two things. That you're either you know the rules and you're trying to get into the canon, the story and all of the lore, or hopefully you're pretty good with the story you want to tell, and you want to really make sure that you're getting the rules right. And then then it would be left over would be the acting and getting loose and comfortable and getting rid of the nerves. Those I think would be probably the first three that pop into my head as far as like game prep.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I think some people sort of overlook that, or at least I've got that impression from as a player. You know, sometimes people don't take the time to, I know I'm using acting terminology here, but like warm up your instrument, right?
Yeah.
Actually like get into that free flowing space where you feel like you're just easy and loose and reacting to stuff and not forcing things, right? Or rushing and trying to flip around through pages and things like that. And I think with that, like what I try to do anyway when we play Cursive Straw recently is I try to do that as a group activity a little bit. That's usually at the beginning of the sessions when you'll hear me go like, so what's your character thinking about? We're not started yet, but like, what are you thinking? And let everybody sort of get into it organically. And then hopefully by the time we're actually, the camera's on, quote unquote, we're sort of already into it and just kind of picking it up on the fly, right? I've
really been enjoying that, and that you ask someone in the group to give a recap, because that forces us to start thinking about, where we were last session, and kind of brings our mental bandwidth back to where it should be in the actual game and not the rest of the world.
Yeah. I think that's something too, just to be aware of when you're prepping, is, there as the game master, like nobody else has as crystal clear a view of what's going on as you do. Right? Yeah. But everybody else has their sort of own perception of what they said, and it could be some version of they didn't hear you right, or you didn't explain something well, maybe, or there was just a confusing moment, and those little things, like if you have 5 or 6 players at the group, they all sort of come into this like a telephone game, and it becomes a totally different thing. And then you're off and running to the next session. You're like, and people are reacting to things. You're like, what's going on? Like kind of one of those moments.
It's so true that each person at the table has their own vision of what's actually happening, of what's actually taking place. And when that crystallizes and when everything kind of gels together, becomes one thing, that's such a magical experience.
Yeah, you can feel it. I mean, you don't even have to look for it. When you if you're kind of in tune with whatever the emotions are at the table, like you're in it right now. Like that's, you found it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff I think about trying to get out of people, I think, and I should say that's probably more true for, mature, well-developed campaigns like we have going on right now.
Yeah.
We're now 39, 40 episodes into this thing, like we're right up against the end,
I can't believe it's how long we've been able to keep it going.
I know. It's been great. Everybody's energy has just really made it drive, but those are the things I think about now, I guess, because I know that I did all the homework, and, at least for me, in terms of prepping, I've read the module cover to cover, probably. I mean, I've sat down and read it at least 2 or 3 times, just straight through. Yeah. I'm just, since it came out a couple of years ago. And then the rereads, I mean, who knows how many times I've reread little bits just trying to do it. But that's, so I feel really comfortable. Anything that when we open up a room, it's a refresh. It's not really, what's going on in here? I better come up with something. There's not too much of that going on.
So Nicholas, he sent me a question. I think that that ties back into it. So what do you do to prepare for a session, and do you feel like you're prepared? Talking about reading for a session, if you've got an idea of where the story's going to go that night, how do you prepare yourself for when the players just take a complete left turn and go in the total opposite direction of where you thought they were going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. One thing you can do to kind of practically prep for that is I like to have just a little, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen just ideas that are little sketches off to the side that are sort of story agnostic, that sort of work anytime. But I've already thought them through a little bit, and maybe it's not in the black and white of the text, but I can just be like, maybe that's interesting there. And I'm not totally improving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like
like I could just be like, what's interesting is, I don't know, maybe there's a demon who's, sitting in the park, and they probably should try to fight him. But what if all he wants to do is argue philosophy? Right? Something like that. And it sort of fits anywhere, right? And you can theme it up on the fly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one thing you can do. There certainly have been some things like that. I won't tell yet which ones. oh
yeah. Afterwards, we should do a full recap of this amazing adventure. And I thank you so much for putting it together, for making Cursive Straw and just carrying us through it, because it can't happen without your passion and enthusiasm. And that's something else that the Dungeon Master has to have. Like, sometimes you can push through and like, hey, I made a commitment to do this, but it's really hard to do if you don't have the passion for it. Yeah,
100%. And it's kind of funny because I think back and just go like, man, I felt like for 6 months or so, I was like trying to pull teeth. I was like, will you guys please play this game with me?
I know.
It's so good. I love it so much. And it was just getting the right group and the timing and everything down, like, to finally do it, right?
Yes.
And now it's like, oh my God, how did we not do this, right?
Yeah. And how to go without it,
Right. Like, now it's just such a part of our, every couple of week routine that.
Yes, it's part of our life.
I can't imagine like when it ends, like what I'm going to do when on my lunch breaks. I'm going to have to sit there and like, read news or.
Oh God, reading the news. let's not go into the news at all. I have been able to avoid it lately, which is great, and I feel like my life is just so much better when I can just stay away from the BS.
I agree, and I will not. I won't even put a toe in that water. This is way more fun.
Yes, absolutely. What about physically? What do you like? Documents, cards. What do you do beforehand?
Yeah, I used to have a little cheat sheet that would have little things that I just wanted to be able to remember quick, like what's a goblin's armor class, how many hit points does that NPC have? Just little quick stuff that I didn't want to have to look up.
Yeah.
But I mean, recently I've really made a hard push to just go digital on everything.
Yeah.
So generally when we're having those warm up moments and it's the first 10 or 15 minutes after we sign on, I'm just pulling up 100 different tabs in my browser and just going like, okay, this monster might pop up. I know I have this NPC stats. Here's somewhere where I can search for spells quick, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of ready to go. But that's all just become super easy just with DnD Beyond. It's made it a little bit easier.
Oh man, it's so great. And I used to have that one that I paid the $30 a month for, and everything's on DnD Beyond now. Instead of paying the $30 a month, you just buy the books. Right. And so, but for $30 a month, you're getting a book. If you, for the same amount of money you could be spending on D&D Beyond, it's an
unbelievable bargain. I mean,
it really is. I wonder how, like, I'm curious about just the economics of it, like not buying the physical medium, what is cut out, like how many truck drivers, had to change jobs because of this. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting. Or like, what's the carbon footprint of not printing?
Right. Versus like server space. Like how many servers does D&D Beyond need to have running at any given moment? And how much does that cost to cool that building?
Yeah, I think you and I have had this discussion before, but we've got a proclivity for hard media.
Yes.
Just because I like tactile things, But God, the convenience of an iPad is like unparalleled, right?
I like to have both. Playing a lot of Warhammer, I'll buy the books digitally because then I've always got the book in my pocket wherever I go. And I can, like, if I have a question about a particular army or a book, then it's right there. But when I'm out and someone wants to see the rule quickly, I like to have a physical copy in my hands. But I don't want to buy it twice, so I end up printing out just the important pages and putting that in a 3-ring binder. So I could see doing the same thing. You ever do that?
Yeah, so I think, so the other thing, it's easy to go revisionist history and forget that 5e was out for like 3 years without DnD Beyond.
Yeah.
Like they had all this stuff that was meant to be, mostly digital content, and then also books. That's kind of what, obviously they released it, in the last few years, so everybody knew it was going to be hard to get people to buy books no matter what, so they had to have a digital model, right?
Yeah.
And then their first pass at it just never got off the ground, and then they had to go back, and D&D Beyond eventually became a thing.
I can't think of anything better to eat a chicken wing in than a good quality t-shirt. Good quality t-shirt over my body. I don't even need a fucking napkin. I got sleeves, bitches. And you know where I go to get my t-shirts? I go to teespring.com. Those are the t-shirts that'll take care of your chicken wing addiction, even if you do keep it one in your wallet, just for prosperity.
Go to teespring.com/Warlando-2.
I can't tell you. The gateway just crashed, basically.
Oh, wow.
So but it's electronics, so I just take the power out, put the power back, and here we are.
It's so, like, I just electronics in general. So we're just coming back from a brief hang up. I'm recording again because your internet crashed. Before this, I turned on my computer and the computer wasn't seeing my audio console at all. And so I turned the console off and back on. And eventually I just restarted the whole computer and turned it back on, and there it was. Everything in life can be solved with a reboot.
If only it were so easy, right?
That'd be so great. Man, I wish I could lose a few pounds. Reboot. Oh, there it goes.
There it is. Back to default mode.
The default mode with the body I had when I was 18. Yeah. So
all the options off, those options that I took,
Yeah, exactly. I went through, I defragged my midsection, and here we are.
Yeah, no, I had to upgrade to the brain processor because it was starting to fall off.
Yep. Now I've got all my memory back.
Yeah. Where were we?
We were talking about the transition to digital and whether or not to rely on digital media.
Right. So that's where I was going with, was in the space and the gap between, when 5e launched, which is when I really started DMing a lot more. And because and tell me if you don't think this is inaccurate, but when 5e launched, like, I picked it up and ran with it as far as people in our group.
Oh, absolutely.
Down the road. Yeah. So I was the one kind of poking everybody all the time, like, hey, wouldn't you like to play? Isn't this cool? Sort of trying different versions of groups to find people that wanted to get together and stuff like that.
It's tough to find, particularly if you're trying to bring in new people, it's tough to find that right mix.
Yeah. Because you can be really good friends with someone and not want to game with them, right? Those things can exist, right?
And this game isn't for everybody.
Right.
And it does, like, some people it'll click, and other people, it just takes a minute, or not at all.
Yep. Yeah, like that's trying to get my wife to play is a pretty good example, right?
Yeah.
Like man, like I if I can just get almost no mechanics in there, like maybe roll a dice every 20 minutes.
Yeah, then she's game.
The right amount for her, right?
Yeah.
If we just sit there and make up a story together, like, super fun, right?
Yep.
But as soon
Yeah.
as there's rules, it's like, oh, you're crushing my hopes and dreams, right?
Yes. Yeah. Trust me, I know.
But what I was going to say is they're in that period, and I think it kind of hit its peak when we did like a marathon weekend, and we tried to run just the giant dungeon at the end of what was the module called? It was
Tomb of Annihilation.
Yes, Tomb of Annihilation.
Yes.
So we all got together one weekend over at your place and like tried to epically push through and do the whole dungeon. We got about halfway through, which I felt like was respectable.
Pretty good in like 2 20-hour sessions.
Yeah, that's about right too.
When we were playing, just to have like a different perspective of what serious gaming is, we were playing that one night, and Nick and Jamie and who else was with us?
I think
Scott
came over.
Yes. They're like, better call it a night. I'm like, what are you talking about? The sun isn't even up yet.
That's right. Yeah, well, I think it's again maybe it's that people don't like playing with us because we want to play till 5 a.m.
I know. A 30-hour session just sounds like heaven.
Yeah, maybe we're the problem. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I think that's quite probable. We just want to dive right in and just roll around in it.
Yeah,
and some people just want to stick a toe in.
They just want a little appetizer, right? Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Or in digestible chunks.
Right. But that was probably the peak of my like prepping for a session with like heavy duty like materials, right? Like everything tactile, right?
Yes.
I had,
when you were drawing those maps.
Oh my God. Like, and I still got them. Anytime you guys want to play that, let me know. If you've got 30 hours to spare.
That might be like something we should plan.
But I remember going with that, and like I read, because we ran that like it wasn't probably like a week or two after the book came out. So like I binged it. I read the whole book like cover to cover in like the first week, and then said, all right, we're just going to run the dungeon for this weekend that we were planning, right?
Yeah.
And so I started prepping, and I had the book. I had literally like color coded Post-it notes, like that were, like I had like yellow for like A to, F or something.
Yeah.
For monsters, so I could kind of quickly figure out where I wanted to go. And we should say, like, I'm also like an engineer, so I have super OCD, like bookmarking problems that have come from years of taking standardized tests. But that's where some of that stuff, that anal retentive nature comes from. But
I love to be surrounded by 3-ring binders. I just want everything in a 3-ring binder.
Yeah,
I want to create my own table of contents. I'm not an engineer, but that's what I learned in school. At university was just making a binder and turn it in the end of the year, and there's something about it that's so satisfying.
It is nice. For me, my version of that is an already bound reference manual. Like a few hundred pages, maybe in the 800s or 900s, and then like I said, little color coded tabs on not just on the side but also like top and bottom.
Yep. Well, you can't. They can't overlap. That drives me crazy when they overlap. You have to move one.
No. You have to. It's very, very precise work.
Yes.
So I had the player's handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the adventure book all tabbed that way. So in the monsters manual, I brought with monsters I knew I needed to be able to find quick because we were going, just be able to pop right to them. And that worked out pretty good. And then I had all these maps. I bought a bunch of grid paper, and I basically recreated all the maps from the book. I just counted grid spaces and traced in pencil, and then did in Sharpie, and then drew in some fun stuff too, right?
It was beautiful. It was a work of art.
Yeah. I mean, if you like rows and columns, come play in my game. Like the Excel spreadsheet of D&D.
I'm sure, like, if anybody's listening to this and they're not into it, they're listening to the wrong show.
No, yeah. Absolutely. If you don't want to, if you're not into Hex, and by the way, we should definitely say Hex is clearly superior to Grid.
Why?
Every day.
In every way?
I think for tactical gaming, I think so.
I don't know if I've ever played Hex.
So I think I think the reason I think that is if you're actually trying to represent physical movement, right?
Yeah.
And actually be pretty accurate with scale, right?
Yes.
If you allow diagonal moves, like that's not actually a scale move of 1 square, right? So 1 square diagonal, you're going farther than you'd be if you went horizontal or vertical. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So you don't, I feel like on just plain grid, you get the hypotenuse for free, and that's chaos. Like nobody wants that.
You definitely sound like an engineer right now.
And doing things on hex just gets away from that. So
yeah, I definitely see what you're saying.
So you guys can see obviously why I'm being interviewed on how you should prep, because it's all numbers. The most boring version of like a fun game, right?
But the numbers are a part of it, and maybe it's not something that grabs everybody, but building characters and seeing seeing the combos and seeing how to min-max your character sheet and the power gamer side, that's a totally valid way to play.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, I think. And that's certainly how I played when I first started. You know what I mean? I was I see the math. It's all numbers, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I should definitely do this because that'll give me the best chance to be more efficient in combat, right?
Yep. But then you start role playing, and you're like, sometimes it's nice to be the dummy in the group, or sometimes it's nice to be the weak one that needs help.
Or you realize the best memories you have aren't critical hits; they're critical misses.
Yep.
Those are always the stuff you remember at the end, right?
Oh yeah.
And there's something with human nature there, right? Because there's the thing with poker players, they can never tell you about this epic hand they won, but there's that one they lost where they just got a bad beat,
Yeah. I can totally see that. I definitely don't. And maybe this is just me. I don't normally wake up in a cold sweat thinking about the street basketball games I won.
Right. But that time Johnny from down the block blocked your shot and made fun of you, that was dramatic.
Right? Oh, God. Damn you, Johnny. So going into Cursive Straw, you've been taking us through the castle, and there may be, for anybody listening, there may be some Cursive Straw spoilers. So you might not want to listen to the rest of the episode if you're planning to play Cursive Straw as a player and you haven't yet. But I don't. If you're thinking you're going to say something spoilery, Matt, just say spoilery or spoiler.
Yeah, I think so. So just to frame it, it shouldn't be a spoiler that that the module has an evil vampire lord as the central character, and he lives in a castle. So you're good so far.
There you go. So going into the castle, and we talked about it a little bit because I know this is a big undertaking when you've got a room with 4 doors and you don't know which door your characters are going to walk through. Yeah. You don't know which way they're going to go. And in the book is set up page by page in a linear fashion where this room's on this page, this room's on this page, but not necessarily in the same order your characters are going to walk through the castle. So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I worried about it for a long time before we ever got there. That was the first way I dealt with it. I just had major anxiety. We should also say, I don't want to give people the wrong impression. We talked about grids and hex and stuff like that, but we're doing this whole campaign just theater of the mind.
Yeah.
There's very rarely something to look at on the screen that says you are here. It's mostly 99% of the time me describing there's a room and here's the ways you can get out of it and here's what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
And so the book is organized kind of the way you described.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the problem. The website is organized just like the book. All right?
Yeah.
And what that basically means this is actually a drawback of the digital side of things, is it's, room 1 in the castle is at the top of the page. Scroll all the way down to the same web page to room 89, right? So you guys probably hear me scrolling all the time trying to find this spot. And there's some cross links and some table of contents and jumps and stuff, but it's kind of rough there. So luckily there's somebody who apparently had the same problem and thinks about things how I do. And they produced this masterful flowchart that's like organized across the thing. And that's usually my first reference is, okay, I know we're in room 54. The different possible places this could connect to are, 36, 50, 22, and 1, right?
Yeah.
And then so if I'm going to prep for a session, then I say like, all right, I'm going to read those rooms. The next rooms that they could go to, I'm going to read all those again. And then sort of see where I think they might end up based on that, based on kind of what I know about the characters and what their motives are. Does that make sense so far?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you can say, like, just as a subset of things to do to prep for a session is to Google search, what else is out there that people have already made, what tools are already out there.
Yeah, and the Dungeon Masters Guild, which is also attached to that stuff, that's exactly where I found this thing. That's a great little resource. A lot of times people put stuff on there for free or for $1. I think I bought that flowchart for $1 or $2.
Wow.
Which I'm totally good with, it's absolutely like worth somebody's time and effort.
They earned that.
So there's that element of it is just sort of reading and having the tactile part of it figured out. But the other advantage I really had, which I haven't talked about too much because I don't want you guys being tempted to go spoil things for yourselves, but I also listened to at least 2 different podcasts that were like playthroughs of Cursive Straw. Somebody recorded it and put it out there.
Yeah.
But that was fun because that was, some of the stuff I just stole directly and blatantly, some of the things I was like, ooh, I can see us having that problem. I should think about that ahead of time. Stuff like that. So I definitely, had a couple of different ideas of how certain mechanics that are special to that adventure might play out ahead of time and set you guys up to kind of get the maximum benefit out of them. And I'll give a good example here because this isn't too spoilery, but there's werewolves in this adventure.
Yeah.
Right?
in a horror themed fantasy adventure, there's werewolves.
Shocker. I know. And so the mechanic in D&D is if you are to get bit by one of these werewolves, you make a Constitution saving throw to see if you contract lycanthropy, if you're going to become a vampire, right? And every saving throw for all time, the players make the saving throw and they say, Dungeon Master, I got a 15. He says, you passed, you failed, whatever, based on how hard it is. But if you remember when you guys were fighting the werewolves and somebody got bit, I took that roll behind the screen.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, there's a number. Carry on.
Yeah, I really like that. Have you watched any of Deborah Hamels' playthroughs?
No, I haven't. You should send them to me.
I will. She's an actress and a celebrity D&D dungeon master, and she does all of the skill checks herself behind a curtain. And I think, we talked about this for taking the dice out of the player's hand and how that can be something that maybe you don't want to do. But there's something to be said for, okay, you just check the room for traps. You think there aren't any traps, and you don't know what she rolled, high or low.
Right.
Yeah, that really forces you to play honestly, without having
you don't. There's no honor system in the middle there, right? Which is
right.
It's tough too. I mean, it's not just we got to watch out for these cheaters. It's not really that so much. It's.
Oh, you're talking about cheating dungeon masters?
No, I mean, so what I'm thinking of is, a player who's like, oh, I failed my perception check.
Yes.
And then you're like, okay, well, you step on the trap. And they're like, well, I rolled low, so I'm just not going to go that way. I'm not going to walk down that hall, right?
Right.
Super meta, like that kind of stuff. That's actually pretty rare in my experience. I don't think people do that very much. But
no, I think with mature players that don't know they need to cheat, I do that though.
Well, and I guess there's something to be said to you were trying to play your character honestly, of course.
Yeah.
But it's tough still too to I know that I didn't roll well, right? And
Yeah.
like to get yourself into there other than just like, okay, I accept my low roll and I take damage, right?
Yes.
Because there's not just things that are as cut and dry as finding a trap. You know, like
Right.
I like to use insight a lot as a role. Like can you like look at this situation socially and sort of see between the lines, right?
Yeah.
Type of stuff. And that's like a whole different thing because that's going to affect how you approach it as a group, right?
Yeah.
You know, how are you going to deal with, you know, this person who's, you know, being unscrupulous, you know, or might be, or you think is being unscrupulous, but you rolled low, so you don't know that they are, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a whole different gray area. So I love that approach. I think that that's a really cool way to play. I'd want to try it out before committing to like a campaign that way.
Yes. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, give it like maybe do a one shot at some point to just get a feel for it.
Yeah, and just take everything behind the screen. Maybe let players roll damage or something like that.
Damage, or maybe like athletics and acrobatics, but those things that are rolls to discover a secret or to discover information. You know, that like secret information. Yeah, it might be interesting to do. I could see even doing it for something like an intimidation check where you're trying to intimidate someone to show you the right way, and you don't know if they're acting intimidated or if they're actually intimidated, and maybe they're going to lure you into a trap because they're not intimidated.
Yeah.
You know, but like athletics, acrobatics, something lock picking, like those things where it's just a physical skill check and you immediately see the result. I don't think you need to hide that, but the secret stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also, it's interesting to think about how I would create a character going into a game for if I knew that that's how things were going to be.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I think like my initial reaction would be I would probably stay away from the min-max area because I'm probably not going to even know what the checks are.
Yes.
You know, it's just there's no need to announce it at that point, right?
Right.
You don't even say, "Hey, I'm behind the screen making an insight check." You're just some dice roll and
Yeah.
okay, what you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think my tendency would be more to just like, I don't have any information, so I'm just going to do something interesting or funny or ridiculous or, you know, just something that I've always wanted to do, whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Just play the character.
Yep.
Yeah. My current character, I don't have a high wisdom. I don't feel like it was a dump stat, but it definitely wasn't, one of my better stats. And so there's a lot of those soft skills tied to wisdom. It makes me nervous every time I have to make any kind of insight check or perception check because I don't have that bonus to it. So I did spend my skills instead of, you know, ramping up something else. I have to put my skill points into those areas because my actual number isn't there.
Yeah, 100%. And I've once or twice gone to just like one day events with I tried to come up with a build where everything was more or less flat.
Yeah.
You know, the things that would have been dump stats, I kind of did other things to bump them up. So get everything pretty good. No real weakness, no real strength.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a similar effect. Like that's interesting, you know? I don't know. We should try it. I'm thinking about it a whole bunch of different ways here. And the thought I had was, I don't know if 5th edition is the best system for that.
Yeah. I think
there's other simpler systems like with less crunch that might be better.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you can use it in 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Without a character sheet in front of me, I think it must work, and it seems to work on her shows.
Yeah, I probably need to watch and see how she's done it.
I'll share them with you.
Think about
So that's one set of tools. You get your online tools from the D&D community. Has there been any session where you're like, man, I wish I had prepared this in advance?
Yeah, a couple of times. I hate having downtime when everybody's into it and trying to like scroll through to find a map. That's the other part of it too, is I'm usually panning around on the maps that I do have, while you guys are navigating and I'm trying to describe it for you.
Yeah.
And I've had to do a ton of just little, making little folders and snipping pieces of maps out and just labeling them in a way that I can find them quickly and go like, oh, that's how this stairwell connects to a bunch of stuff, so I can have a quick visual aid.
Yeah.
And I found I haven't always thought that through as well. So I'm just going, it ends up with a, 15 or 20 or 30 seconds of dead air going like, oh, hang on guys, let me figure this out so I get it right.
That's not a problem though. I mean, like I understand how you feel that way, but I think players, it sucks breaking the fourth wall and forcing people to lean back for a minute, but everybody's accepting of the wealth of knowledge you have to bring, and nobody's expecting you to know everything all at once.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't feel pressure from the players. It's more just like, in the format that we're doing this too, where we're sort of setting this up as like a weekly TV series, right? Like that's the feel that we want. And, so you want it in that format, you want it to feel more seamless, right? You want it to feel like there's, even though we're making it up as we go, that there's a natural rhythm and flow to it, right?
Yeah.
But I totally understand the pressure is coming from my side, and most of the time, it's fine, and I've thought it through. But I do wish the maps were easier to manage. I mean, what I really want is like a completely rendered 3D model that I can zoom through and walk around in.
Yes.
On my desktop, like a CAD drawing.
At this point, I'd be surprised if someone hadn't done that. Maybe as like probably as like a Doom or mod or a first person shooter mod, that exists somewhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I definitely want like those of you that know anything about the construction industry, a Revit model of the Castle Ravenloft would be pretty epic to do just as a fun project, but I don't want to know how many hours that would take.
Yeah,
and I guess there are tools like DnD Beyond. No, what's the one that has the maps on it that you can? We considered using this for Cursive Straw.
D20.
Yeah, Roll20.
Roll20. Yeah,
that one, which I've played a couple of campaigns through on that, and that's a ton of fun. It sort of automates a lot of things, and you have the ability to at least show everybody floor plans and everybody moves around realistically.
Yeah.
But there's a pretty steep learning gap there. Like, and we had a lot of new players in this campaign, so it would have been not only like learn Dungeons and Dragons, but also like figure out how to use this whole kind of web interface, right?
Right. And then just to, and have to, not just get the interface, but then get the technology, the hardware to actually use it. Yeah.
And even when I have played with people who've spent like thousands of hours on their planet, there's still a little bit of like what I was describing earlier, which is like, oh, hang on, guys, I gotta get the lighting setting right. I'll be right back. When they're popping in and changing things.
Yeah.
So there's no real, until we're able to just like build, a 12th scale model, you know what I mean? And everybody has time to do that like pulls apart and becomes floor plans and is easy to use.
Or we're completely sucked into the matrix and we can actually play through that way, which.
Yeah, right. Which is, that's what that's what Tracy Hickman, who's the guy that wrote Cursive Straw, or not Cursive Straw, but he wrote the original Ravenloft adventures. I saw him at Dragon Con, and that's basically what he's working on these days.
Oh, that's
has,
cool.
Like, this full-blown VR like company, like he's the writer for it, and you just step into this room and it's part physical and it's part VR, and all this stuff. So not to get too far off on a tangent, but that's the that's the take the red pill version of what we're trying to get to, right?
Yes. And it's not too far off. We keep getting closer to it.
Yeah. I can't wait. I mean, a full blown digital version of Castle Ravenloft that I can walk around in sounds like something I would empty my bank account for.
Yes. Any other prep that you do?
I think, I guess so I meant to get back to this. I talked a lot about how I prep for sessions, like in a mature, well-developed campaign.
Yes.
Where we sort of know how things are going on. But, I think really the hardest part of the work was, that before session 1 time, right? The preparation for like starting up a campaign. Because, it's easy to sit down and play D&D for an afternoon and you play a quick adventure and that's fun. And I like doing that. That's a good way to try stuff out, but, I think for us, the cherry on the tree is like the full campaign, right? Like characters that go on, have an actual, full blown arc and, achievements and disappointments and, right and left turns and all the things like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were, when I was sort of organizing this campaign, or we kind of had everybody bought in at the front of this thing, and I had read the module a couple times at this point and sort of knew where I thought I wanted to go with the story. The first thing I did, if y'all remember, was I said, well, just make your character, right? That's the easy part. If you need help, like, let's get all your characters on the sheet. But then I sort of I wanted to riff off some small thing that you all came up with on your character. And I got back a varied, assortment of stuff. So I said, tell me a little bit of something about your character. Right. And, I think you sent me a text or a Slack message or something like that with a kind of a sketch of an outline of who this person is, like not mechanically, but, as a character. Yeah. Your dad like hand wrote out this like epic creative backstory, Yeah. I got, Mark, I was really busy at the time at work, so I just got back a couple of quick things, other folks got more and more into it. But then I took a little bit of what y'all gave me and then what I knew about the adventure and then picked, this would be interesting to see what that character did if they were somehow tied to the plot this way. And I did that sort of for everybody. And then that became a version of something that I wrote, about a paragraph or so, that I sent to everybody. And, for your character, it was the ring, right, that you had, which we sort of came up with collaboratively because, for Mark, it was he had this song that he couldn't get out of his head, Yeah. There was, a couple of different, your dad's character, Talbot, had, a strange tattoo, right, that he didn't know what it was about. And in my mind, all that stuff was meant to trigger in specific chapters of the book or with specific monsters or in role-playing moments and things like that. So that's sort of how the skeleton of the campaign came to be, because I knew that I kind of wanted you guys to mostly take a track like this, not do these things in this order because that's not fun, but we're going to set off in this direction, right? And there's options and branching forks and paths along the way, but I don't want to give you the impression that you need to start off at level 1 and go right to the castle, right? Like that wouldn't make any sense, So that was the most fun part of the prep for me, because that's really just pure writing, right? That's just riffing off each other. So, I mean, what is that how it felt to you when we were sort of working through that?
Yeah, I thought, I thought that each character, you were able to give each character a story arc, Yeah. And that's hopefully, that's come across. And I mean, some of them are just now, coming to fruition or seeing like where it was going, but I sort of wanted that you have an initial thing and then there's a development somewhere along the way. And then there's, a confrontation, right? So like that 1, 2, 3 step, initial mystery, twist or development, then like final confrontation and resolution, right? Yes. That structure sort of made sense to me. And it was simple enough, to build the story around that, because then I started doing the math and saying, all right, well, we have 6 characters and I probably need at least an episode for each of them, for each of those 3 parts, right? Yeah. Or at least a part of an episode where you focus on that. So right now, without any other major stuff in combat, you're 18 episodes, more or less, right? Yeah, that's true.
So I was already going like, this is going to take a while. That's sort of how I think about it. And it doesn't always work out that way, but I think most of the time this week this character is going to have the spotlight on them, and I think that sort of keeps everybody fresh and involved. You know what I mean? And it's certainly not a hard, structure. Like if where we were going doesn't make any sense, then we improv our way through it. But that really helps me plan it out. As sort of, I've heard it described as just put some tent poles in the ground, and we don't know what the tent's going to look like yet, but
yeah,
we got to use these 4 or 5 things to like build something around it, right?
Yeah.
So that was probably the most important part of planning this campaign to me, because honestly, now I don't really prep for sessions too much. If I'm being honest with you, like I know where we're going, but I know I've read it so many times, and I kind of know where these characters are going. Like there's only, at this point we're toward the end, so I'm not that worried. I kind of know where it's going to go. Just when it happens, and that's sort of, I'm way more concerned about it feeling genuine and satisfying for you all, because, for me, it's payoff, because like I get to see, this vision for a story come out, you know what I mean? But I want it to be satisfying for y'all, and not just, sort of feel sidecar, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with the expression sidecar. You mean like
I'm driving the motorcycle and you guys are just kind of riding along, right?
Yes, definitely don't want that feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
And because I'm not prepping at this point, I'm just letting you guys drive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which is great. It definitely shows. It definitely shows that you're comfortable in this world, in this space, and it's real to you. And because it's real to you, it's real to us. Good.
That's great. I think the biggest problem I've got is this herd of non-player characters that I'm constantly like, they're all super interesting, and we went to great lengths to develop them and have their own personalities.
Yeah. We have a pretty substantial entourage with us.
Yeah. But I'm constantly struggling to keep the spotlight off of them and on y'all. You know what I mean? And with 6 main players in the group, that takes most of the bandwidth of the time we have, right?
And these characters too, the NPCs that are with us are all these like high level characters that they could probably handle this adventure on their own without us.
Yeah.
Except that they all did get killed and had to be resurrected or
Right. Well, like crunch wise, you look at them and go like, oh my God, they have like spells that we would never see. You know what I mean? For many levels, right?
Yes.
But the story being what it is like, yeah, they tried that. Didn't work out too good. Right.
Right.
So maybe they need y'all more than you think.
Yes. Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm really, really having such a great time in the campaign, and I'm really excited to see how it does wrap up when we finally get to the man himself.
Yeah. The fight will be interesting, but I think, I guess maybe 2 more, these are fun things that I try to prep too, is just to keep it fresh for me. Like, well, the one thing I've talked about before, I really like the episode titles. Like that's just,
you're having fun. Well, you're like Bob's Burgers with his burger of the day.
That's exactly what it's like. And usually like if I start to get more than like 3 or 4 days after we do an episode and I haven't put a plot recap out there, or I haven't like said to everybody like, yeah, here's what happened and here's the loot you got, add it to your character sheet, whatever. I only haven't done it because I don't let myself release any of that stuff until I know what the episode title is.
Awesome.
So I kind of like force myself, like, you better know where you're going before you put into do any of the easy tasks, right?
Yeah.
So
that's fun.
That's a lot of fun. And then I really enjoy looking for the cliffhanger too, because pretty much every one of our episodes ends somewhere interesting, right?
Yes.
Kind of like I usually think about it in terms of like the quantum leap moment. Like if you're a fan of the show from the 80s.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
once he saves the day.
And then it's like, oh boy. Right. at the end. It's just some twist, like you end up dropped into a boxing ring or, whatever, right?
Yeah, and he'd always say, "Oh boy."
Yep. So those are like the two super fun little writing bits that I like to come up with every week. Is like, okay, and it's harder to plan it's a lot tougher to plan the cliffhangers, to
Yes.
know where you guys are going to go, right?
It's kind of like I imagine you just look at the clock and think, okay, where's a good stopping point?
Yeah. Usually when I know we got about 15, 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but then sometimes it's like, man, there isn't one coming.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy, we're going to go late tonight because I don't know a good place, right?
Yeah. Definitely don't want to start a fight at, 9 p.m. when you were planning to end it at, 9:30.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll twist it back around on you for a little bit. Like when you're thinking of, if you have an important session coming up, and I think I try to do a good job of this, is I try to give you all a heads up, like, hey, this is going to be, a Beyondier episode, your character.
Yeah.
Like say, hey, it's going to be, the spotlight's on you. So maybe think a little bit about, what you want to do with that time and how you want to develop it. And if you need help, let me know. But usually you guys are creative enough to handle it. So, I mean, what do you, when you're thinking of stuff like that, like as a player, what do players kind of do to prep for the session to sort of handshake it?
Well, as a player, I think the most important thing a player can do is just know their character sheet. I think equally important, I do think, is knowing your character and what your character is going to do in certain situations. And I think some of that you do kind of discover about your character and about yourself as you continue to play, as it builds. But yeah, I think having to know, okay, what are my actions? And D&D Beyond, this isn't a commercial for D&D Beyond, but D&D Beyond makes that so easy that if you've got your character sheet up in front of you on the computer, you can hit actions and you can read your whole list of actions, to know your spells, know your, as a battle master, knowing my combat maneuvers. I think those are the things a character can do to prepare and to prepare to be on time.
Right.
Which I do my best with my Skype calls from the car.
Oh yeah. Everybody's been super punctual like this campaign. It really has been great because it's everybody that you play with is not like that, True. It's just like, hey, we're hanging out Friday night. Like, I'll get there when I can. Yeah. This is more of a but because it's so many people intersecting, you know what I mean?
True.
It's really tough to get scheduled in the first place. And once we do get it and agree on a time, it's never any last minute cancellations. You know what I mean? It's like, if we, on the other side of that is, if we do need to reschedule, like don't worry about it. You just need to reschedule. Like there's no like, oh, I'm already down 0 of that. Like, okay, cool. We're moving it. That's the end of the story. Somebody couldn't do it. Right.
Yeah. No resentment. I think we've each had to cancel one too,
Everybody has at some point, right?
Yep. Yeah. People get sick. People have overtime. Stuff happens.
Absolutely. And I guess I will say too, I think some of the things like back, I talked a little bit about when I was kind of poking you guys to try to get you to play Cursive Straw with me or just play more D&D in general, right? Kind of before we started this.
Yeah.
And, when you're trying to get something like that up off the ground, I think it's all about, overcoming barriers to being able to play. Yeah. Right. And so one of the things, to these games that we love playing, like is, it's a barrier to family time because you're competing, directly with like, hey, if I wasn't playing D&D tonight, I'd be hanging out with my wife, watching a movie or going to dinner. Yeah. Or doing something else. Right. Yes. You have to maintain a balance in life. You do. But it's so one of my favorite, this is my favorite thing about the campaign is that everybody is doing this with their family. Yes. And I don't mean that we're all family. That's a really keen observation. Yeah. Adam's doing this with his dad. Yep. Mark's doing this with his son. Nicholas is doing this with his wife. And that's the party. Yep. Right. So we're actually, using family time here. Yeah, we are getting quality time with our family while we play. Right. And it's even worked out the veteran gamers all have a newer person with them. So you're also like mentoring them and teaching them the system kind of as you go along. Or you were at first, now everybody's a pro. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's amazing to me. If we had a recording of episode 1 that we could go back and listen to, or people were like,
what do I do?
Where's my dexterity?
Yeah.
And now everybody's like spell save DC 17, versus wisdom, and like knows all the lingo and all this stuff, right?
Yep. That's
so
awesome.
That's been super fun for me. I really tried hard to get my wife to like be not a constant presence, but I really wanted her to like pop in and out and have fun with it, but couldn't make it happen.
No. Hey, but it's not her thing, but she loves all those other board games.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We play games all the time together, but like I can't get her to sit down and commit to a campaign like this. Well, we got her in the one episode, and I'll give you this reveal because it's not going to be it's never going to happen. But we had her pop in for like 15 minutes at one point to play the role of the gypsy fortune teller.
Yes.
At one point of the campaign, and that was fun because nobody expected it, and because we had that forced perspective from Skype, and everybody was like, "Whoa, wait," And then my intention from there was like to have her sort of be, the Chekhov's gun, right? Like I put her in the front, so I better shoot her at the end, right? And so I like for months I was just like, hey, we could bring Madame Eva back this week. You really, I had an idea here. You want to do it? Yeah, let's do it. And then they were like, I'm not into it. I don't want to put the makeup on. So I tried hard to make everybody.
And she doesn't love being on camera either.
No, she's not big on it. Yeah, like if she could be just audio, she probably would be fine with it. But anyway, so I tried. It still takes away from my family time, I guess, technically. but
at least she understands. She gets it.
Totally.
She's not one of those people like, what are you doing? No, if she didn't like it, it'd be hard to do it at all. If she didn't like that you were doing it or didn't understand what it was.
Right. And we should say she played with us. She really did.
Oh, yeah.
Give it a hard try. Like she played a lot with us.
She did.
We were dungeon mastering. Even though it wasn't her thing, like she was like, but it's all my friends and I want to do it, but
yeah.
At some point she was just like, I don't want to.
Yep. Which is, it's totally fine to be forced into it. It's just no fun for you or anybody else,
Right.
Very, very lucky to have this amazing, like you said, this family of players.
For sure. Yeah, it's great. And I really think I think more and more about, how do we keep it going, obviously, when this does end, we want to keep the group, together, and obviously there should be a break there and a little bit of decompress time, you know what I mean? And no pressure with the scheduling it. And do
something like a season break, like not like take an entire season off in real time, but like thinking, like you said about a TV series, like that's the end of, maybe not season 1, but that's the end of that season. That then we, mentally get prepared for what the next season's going to be.
Yeah, 100%. And we've talked a couple of different ideas that are thrown around out there. I'd love to see some sort of rotating dungeon master thing. Just like say, hey, we're going to get together 7 times. You know what I mean? And everybody gets one chance to run a game however you want for a couple hours. Like just don't care what system, what rules, whatever you want. Just do something fun or funny, right?
Yeah. There's a couple one-offs I want to do. I'd like to try the Rick and Morty. There's the Age of Sigmar RPG is going to be coming out soon, so I'd like to do a one-off game master for that. And I know I would love to finish up our Star Wars campaign we were in too.
Man, yeah, that was like just getting hot, man.
It was
really fun.
We were going to do a street race into a heist.
I know. It was like we had all the setup done. Like,
yes.
Everything was ready to go. We were like getting ready for the action, the big payoff.
Yes. And then, we got to stop.
Yeah, exactly. I played a really fun one last weekend. It was a really simple system, but you start off with 4 pre-generated characters.
Yeah.
And the whole thing it's a horror setup, so it's literally a meat grinder. Like, you're given 4 characters and told that you're given 4 because you're probably a lot of them are gonna die.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like a slasher setup. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you missed one roll, you died. Sorry. Yep. Oh, Johnny, we barely knew you, right?
I want to play Call of Cthulhu too, and that's supposed to be another one that's like that, where, yeah, if you get in a knife fight with a one-armed hobo, you might not live.
Right. Just like the real life versions of people.
Yeah. It's like the real world.
Probably pretty scary.
Yeah. If you in the real world walked around the corner and that was happening, yeah.
I would not do well.
Nope. Oh, speaking of not doing well, we played, Pop's birthday was yesterday, so I gave him Blood Bowl for the Xbox One.
Cool.
So we played that all afternoon today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But I tried playing the dwarves, and he had the orcs, and just anytime I moved, I was just knocked cold, turns over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy's got a broken neck. He's not coming back this game. But yeah, that game's a lot of fun.
I was I was playing it on my PlayStation there for a little while, and I was just playing against the computer because I didn't have anybody to play one-on-one with. But
yeah.
Oh, it was a blast. I couldn't get past the elves on the.
Oh, in the campaign?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. The story mode, I guess.
Yeah.
You work your way up, and they were crushing me.
Yeah. It's a fun game. That was really fun.
I really do like it though. Like the mechanics are super interesting. And they have the story mode. They did a good job with like the voice acting and stuff like that. Like, there's a pretty funny back and forth.
Yeah. I really like the commentators, the sports commentators. Mm-hmm. Oh, speaking of sports commentators, last night we did our first live stream of live game for Warhammer Age of Sigmar.
Oh, really? Oh, I saw it pop up on the channel. Is that what that was?
Yeah. Okay. We recorded live, and so it's Nicholas and I on the sidelines kind of commentating / heckling the players, and they were here at my place.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that's what you guys were doing, so I got to pop that on.
Yeah, please give it a listen. I'd love your feedback. And anybody else that's listening too, if you want to give us feedback about the podcast or what we're doing on YouTube, that's greatly appreciated. We'd definitely like to get some feedback from you guys. Oh, and I do want to say, as we're getting near the end of the episode, if you're a Warhammer Age of Sigmar player, this coming Saturday, February 29th, there's a tournament at Campus Cards and Games 2 that store is located on 436 in Orlando, right next to the Geek Easy. And we are going to be live streaming all day long. Nicholas and I are going to be talking for 9 hours straight for this 3-game tournament. Yeah, it's a big undertaking. And so if you're listening to this, you want to support us, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's Warlando. And please watch the live stream. This is going to be going for 9 hours on Saturday. Talk about prep that we have to do.
I don't know if I can commit to watching all 9 hours, but I want to get in at like hour 8 and just see what's going on.
We will be loopy, but we will see any comments people make. We get to see them live.
Cool.
So I've been reading we were reading people's comments back, and YouTube has this neat function where if someone curses in a comment, I have the option of like showing the comment or not showing the comment.
Okay.
Which I was showing all the comments, of course. Obviously, and reading them out loud too. So
no family safe rating on this podcast.
No. Fuck that shit.
Fuck families. We covered that.
Well, if they're listening to this and they haven't got that by now, then yeah, they should stop listening to this.
We didn't curse too many times.
Any last words, Mr. McCale?
No, just, thanks for talking me through it. I mean, it's just a pleasure to be able to, honestly, we talk about like, what do you do to prep, and how do you get ready for all this stuff? And sometimes it can almost sound like a chore, get these whatever spreadsheets together, or like reading all this stuff and making sure you're on point and stuff like that. But honestly, like I enjoy every minute of it, and any notes I make to myself and stuff like that is a nice, break from whatever I'm doing. And I think the biggest tip I could give everybody is I've never been successful trying to binge prepare.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me. I think do it in little bits and snaps when you have the inspiration and when you feel like you want to do it. Don't get up in the morning on a Friday and go like, all right, I got 4 hours of reading to get through, Like
Yeah.
if that's going to be tough. And so, I read the modules on my phone just all the time here and there. And that's really how it happens, is just sort of, mining my little in-between moments for plenty of time. But, thanks for the opportunity to come on. It's always a pleasure to chat.
Oh man, thank you very much for coming on, because that's such a true thing. If your hobby starts to become a chore, then you're going to lose all the joy. The whole point is to have fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you do have more fun if you are well prepared at the end of the day. But if you waste all your energy just trying to get through some content, then just get creative with it. Maybe write your own.
Yeah, it's true. Or just wing it, and there's no wrong answers so long as everybody's having a good time.
Yeah. If a chapter is just not catching you, you know what? Maybe you don't like that chapter. Don't feel like you need to read the thing.
Yeah. And maybe if you don't like it, maybe nobody likes it.
Yeah. Maybe we're not going to play that chapter. Right.
Yeah.
Not having fun, right?
Perfectly good answer.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, you know what we say when we sign off at the end of one of these episodes?
I do.
This has been an episode of Warlando. Remember to like and subscribe to show your support. Thanks a lot for listening.